In the small, isolated town of Blackwood, nestled deep within a forest that seemed to stretch endlessly, there was a radio station that had long been forgotten. WBLK, once a vibrant hub of music and news, had fallen silent after a series of strange occurrences led to its abrupt closure. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones about the station, claiming that it was haunted by the spirits of those who had vanished while working there. The stories were enough to keep most people away, but for a group of adventurous friends, the allure of the unknown was irresistible. One crisp autumn evening, Clara, Jake, Mia, and Tom decided to explore the abandoned radio station. They had heard the tales of the eerie broadcasts that had continued long after the station had closed, and they were determined to uncover the truth. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a portable recording device, they made their way through the overgrown path that led to the station. The air was thick with anticipation, and the trees seemed to whisper secrets as they approached the crumbling building. As they stepped inside, the musty smell of decay enveloped them. The walls were lined with peeling posters of long-forgotten bands, and the equipment lay covered in layers of dust. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine as she glanced at the old radio console, its dials frozen in time. "This place is creepy," Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you sure we should be here?" But Clara, ever the brave one, urged them to explore further. They split up, each taking a different part of the station. Clara and Jake headed to the control room, while Mia and Tom ventured into the recording studio. As Clara examined the equipment, she noticed a small, dusty microphone that seemed to beckon her. "Hey, Jake, check this out," she called, her curiosity piqued. Jake joined her, and together they brushed off the dust, revealing a small button labeled "On Air." "Should we?" Jake asked, a hint of mischief in his voice. Clara nodded, her heart racing with excitement. With a deep breath, she pressed the button. The room filled with static, and then, unexpectedly, a voice crackled through the speakers. "Help us, please." The voice was faint, almost a whisper, but it sent chills down Clara's spine. "Did you hear that?" she gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Meanwhile, in the recording studio, Mia and Tom were setting up their camera when they heard a strange humming sound. "What is that?" Tom asked, glancing around nervously. The humming grew louder, and they exchanged worried glances. "It sounds like it's coming from the control room," Mia said, her voice trembling. They hurried to join Clara and Jake, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they entered the control room, they found Clara staring at the radio, her face pale. I think someone is trying to communicate with us," she stammered. The static continued to crackle, and the voice returned, clearer this time. "You must leave, before it's too late." The urgency in the voice sent a wave of dread through the group. "We need to get out of here," Mia urged, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But Clara was entranced. "What if we can help them?" she said, her eyes shining with determination. "We have to find out who it is." Jake and Tom exchanged worried glances, but Clara's resolve was unshakable. They decided to stay, hoping to uncover the mystery behind the voice. As they delved deeper into the station, they discovered old tapes and records, each one telling a story of the past. They learned about the station's last broadcast, a chilling tale of a storm that had swept through the town, causing chaos and destruction. The last DJ, a man named Frank, had been on air when the storm hit, and his voice had been the last thing many townsfolk heard before they vanished without a trace. The more they uncovered, the more the atmosphere in the station shifted. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, and the air grew heavy with an unshakable sense of dread. Clara felt a growing connection to the voice, as if it were calling to her, urging her to uncover the truth. "We have to find Frank," she insisted, her determination unwavering. As they searched the station, they stumbled upon a hidden room behind a false wall. Inside, they found old equipment and a dusty recording booth. The air was thick with an oppressive energy, and Clara felt a chill run down her spine. "This must be where Frank broadcasted his last message," she whispered, her voice barely audible. They set up their recording equipment, their hearts racing with anticipation and fear. Clara took a deep breath, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the dials on the old console. "If we can find a way to connect with him, maybe we can help him move on," she said, her voice steady despite the unease that gripped her. Jake, Mia, and Tom gathered around, their eyes fixed on Clara as she prepared to record. "What if we're just stirring up something we can't control?" Tom asked, his voice laced with apprehension. "We don't even know what happened to him." But Clara was resolute. "We have to try. If there's a chance we can help, we can't just walk away." With a nod of agreement, they all took their places, and Clara pressed the record button. "This is WBLK, broadcasting from the abandoned station in Blackwood," she said, her voice echoing in the dimly lit room. "If anyone can hear us, please respond. We want to help you." The static crackled ominously, and for a moment, silence enveloped them. Then, as if the air itself had thickened, the voice returned, clearer and more urgent than before. "You shouldn't have come here, they're watching, you must leave now." The words sent a jolt of fear through the group, and Clara felt her heart race. "Who's watching? What happened to you?" she pressed, her voice trembling. The response was immediate, but the voice was now distorted, as if struggling to break through a barrier. "The darkness, it consumes. Frank, trapped, help us." The static intensified, and the lights flickered ominously. Clara's heart sank as she realized they were not alone in the station. Something malevolent lurked in the shadows, feeding off their fear. Suddenly, the recording equipment began to malfunction, the dials spinning wildly as the lights dimmed further. "We need to get out of here," Mia shouted, panic rising in her voice. But Clara, caught in the grip of the moment, refused to abandon their mission. "No. We can't leave now. We're so close," she insisted, her eyes wide with determination. As the static grew louder, the room seemed to warp around them. Shadows twisted and elongated, creeping closer as if drawn to their presence. Tom grabbed Clara's arm, his grip tight with fear. "Clara, please. We have to go," he pleaded, but she shook her head, her gaze fixed on the console. "Frank, if you can hear us, please give us a sign." Clara called out, her voice rising above the chaos. The air crackled with energy, and for a brief moment, the shadows receded, revealing a flickering image on the old monitor. It was a grainy video feed of the station from years ago, showing Frank at the microphone, his face pale and haunted. "Help me. I can't escape." Frank's voice echoed through the room, filled with desperation. The group watched in horror as the video flickered, revealing glimpses of the storm outside, the chaos that had unfolded, and then, abruptly, the screen went black. The oppressive energy returned, and the shadows surged forward, enveloping them in darkness. Clara felt a cold grip around her throat, as if invisible hands were pulling her into the abyss. "Run!" Jake shouted, breaking the spell that had entranced Clara. The group bolted for the door, their hearts pounding in their chests as they raced through the dimly lit hallways. The shadows chased them, whispering incoherent words that echoed in their minds, sowing seeds of doubt and fear. They burst through the front door, stumbling into the cool night air, gasping for breath. The forest loomed around them, dark and foreboding, but they didn't stop. They ran, adrenaline fueling their escape, until they reached the edge of the woods. As they paused to catch their breath, Clara turned back, her heart heavy with regret. "We can't just leave him there," she said, her voice trembling. "Clara, we barely made it out," Mia exclaimed, her eyes wide with fear. "What if we go back and it's worse? What if we can't escape again?" But Clara felt a pull, a connection to Frank that she couldn't ignore. "We have to go back. We owe it to him," she insisted, her resolve hardening. After a moment of hesitation, the group exchanged glances, and one by one, they nodded. They couldn't abandon Frank, not when they had come so far. They made their way back to the station, the oppressive atmosphere wrapping around them like a shroud. As they entered, the air felt charged, as if the very walls were alive with anticipation. Clara led the way back to the control room, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was dimly lit, the shadows dancing along the walls as if mocking their return. The radio console stood silent, but Clara could feel the weight of the presence that lingered in the air. "We need to find a way to reach him," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at her insides. Jake, Mia, and Tom gathered around her, their expressions a mix of determination and dread. "What if we try to play back the recording we made?" Jake suggested, his brow furrowed in thought. "Maybe it will trigger something." Clara nodded, her heart racing at the thought of connecting with Frank again. They quickly set up the recording equipment, their hands trembling as they prepared to play back the chilling message. As the tape whirred to life, the static filled the room, and the voice of Frank echoed once more. Help me. I can't escape. The urgency in his tone sent shivers down Clara's spine. The shadows in the room seemed to pulse with energy, and she felt a cold breeze sweep through, chilling her to the bone. Frank, we're here to help you. Clara shouted, her voice rising above the static. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and the temperature dropped. The shadows coalesced into a dark figure, its form shifting and writhing as if it were made of smoke. Clara's heart raced as she realized they had awakened something far more sinister than they had anticipated. What have we done? Mia gasped, her eyes wide with terror. The figure loomed closer, its presence suffocating. You should not have come back, it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed in their minds. You cannot save him. He belongs to us now. The group huddled together, fear coursing through their veins as they faced the malevolent entity. Frank! Clara cried out, desperation lacing her voice. We're here for you. We want to help. The figure paused, its form flickering as if caught between two worlds. For a moment, Clara thought she saw a glimmer of recognition in its depths. Help me. Frank's voice broke through the darkness, filled with anguish. The shadows writhed in anger, and the entity lunged forward, its cold tendrils reaching for Clara. Leave this place, it roared, the sound reverberating through the walls. Clara felt a surge of fear, but she stood her ground. No. We won't leave you, she shouted, her voice echoing defiantly. In that moment, the air crackled with energy, and the room filled with a blinding light. The shadows recoiled, and Clara felt a warmth envelop her, as if Frank's spirit was reaching out to her. You must listen, he pleaded, his voice clearer now. The darkness is strong, but you can break its hold. You must find the truth. The light intensified, and the entity shrieked in fury, its form dissipating into the shadows. Clara felt a rush of energy, and the oppressive weight that had filled the room began to lift. What truth? She asked, her heart racing as she fought to maintain her connection with Frank. The storm, it was no accident, Frank's voice echoed, filled with urgency. They took us, the ones who vanished, they were sacrificed to the darkness. You must uncover the truth before it claims you too. The light flickered, and Clara felt herself being pulled back, the connection weakening. Frank, wait, she cried, but the light began to fade, and the shadows surged forward once more. You must go. Frank's voice echoed one last time before the darkness enveloped them, plunging the room into chaos. The group stumbled back, fear gripping their hearts as they fought to escape the encroaching shadows. We need to get out. Tom shouted, his voice filled with panic. They turned and ran, the oppressive darkness clawing at their heels as they raced through the hallways of the station. As they burst through the front door, the cool night air hit them like a wave, and they stumbled into the forest, gasping for breath. The shadows receded behind them, but Clara could still feel the weight of Frank's words pressing on her mind. We have to find out what happened, she said, her voice trembling with determination. But how? Mia asked, her eyes wide with fear. We barely made it out alive. Clara took a deep breath, her mind racing. We need to dig deeper into the history of the station. There must be records, something that can help us understand what happened during the storm. Reluctantly, the group agreed, knowing they couldn't leave Frank trapped in the darkness. They returned to the town, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that they had to confront the past. The next day, they visited the local library, scouring through dusty archives and old newspapers, searching for any mention of the radio station and the mysterious events surrounding it. Clara felt a sense of urgency driving her, the weight of Frank's plea echoing in her mind. They needed to uncover the truth, not just for Frank, but for the others who had vanished. Hours passed as they pored over yellowed pages and faded photographs. Finally, Mia stumbled upon an article that caught her eye. Look at this, she exclaimed, pointing to a headline that read, Mysterious Disappearances Linked to WBLK Radio Station. The article detailed a series of strange occurrences leading up to the storm that had claimed the lives of several townsfolk, including the last DJ, Frank. As they read on, Clara's heart sank. The article described how the station had been experimenting with a new broadcasting technique, one that was said to tap into frequencies beyond the normal range. They were trying to communicate with the dead, Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. They thought they could reach the other side. Tom frowned, his brow furrowed in thought. But it backfired. They opened a door they couldn't close. The realization hung heavy in the air, and the group exchanged worried glances. "We have to find out what happened during that storm," Clara insisted. "There has to be more information somewhere." They continued their search, and after what felt like an eternity, they found a dusty ledger tucked away in a corner of the library. It contained records of the station's broadcasts, including the last transmission made by Frank. Clara's hands trembled as she opened the book, her heart racing with anticipation. The final entry was dated the night of the storm. Broadcasting live from WBLK, the entry read, "We are experiencing unusual interference. It feels as though something is trying to break through. I can hear voices, they're pleading for help." Clara's breath caught in her throat as she read the words. This is it. This is what Frank was trying to tell us. The entry continued, detailing how the storm had intensified, and the voices had grown louder, more insistent. "I fear for my life," Frank had written. "If anyone finds this, know that we were not alone. The darkness is real, and it hungers for souls." The final line sent chills down Clara's spine. "If I do not survive, remember us." The weight of the truth settled heavily on their shoulders. "We have to go back," Clara said, her voice firm. "We need to confront whatever is holding Frank and the others captive." The group hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes, but they knew they couldn't turn back now. They had come too far, and the stakes were too high. As night fell, they made their way back to the radio station, the forest around them alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant howls. The air felt charged, and Clara could sense the darkness lurking just beyond the trees. They entered the station, the familiar musty smell enveloping them once more. The shadows seemed to pulse with anticipation, and Clara steeled herself for what lay ahead. They returned to the control room, the air thick with tension. Clara approached the radio console, her heart pounding in her chest. "We need to recreate the last broadcast," she said, her voice steady. "It's the only way to reach Frank and the others." The group nodded, their determination renewed. As they set up the equipment, Clara felt a strange energy in the air, as if the very walls were alive with the echoes of the past. She pressed the on-air button, and the static filled the room once more. "This is WBLK, broadcasting from the abandoned station in Blackwood," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her. "If anyone can hear us, we are here to help." The static crackled ominously, and for a moment, silence enveloped them. Then, the voice returned, clearer and more desperate than before. "You shouldn't have come back, they will take you too." The shadows in the room began to swirl, and Clara felt a cold breeze sweep through, chilling her to the bone. "Frank, we're here for you," Clara shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "We want to help you escape." The shadows writhed in anger, and the entity that had tormented them before began to take shape, its form dark and menacing. "You cannot save him," it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed in their minds. But Clara stood her ground, her heart racing. "We will not leave you," she shouted defiantly. "We will uncover the truth." The entity lunged forward, its cold tendrils reaching for her, but Clara felt a surge of energy as she focused on Frank's voice. "We are here. We will not abandon you," she cried, her voice echoing with determination. The shadows hesitated, and for a moment, the oppressive darkness seemed to waver. Clara could feel Frank's presence growing stronger, his spirit reaching out to her. "You must break the cycle," he urged, his voice resonating through the static. "The darkness feeds on fear and despair. You have the power to set us free." With renewed resolve, Clara turned to her friends. "We need to confront the darkness together. We have to show it that we're not afraid." They nodded, their fear replaced by a sense of purpose. They formed a circle around the radio console, holding hands tightly as they focused on the task at hand. "Frank, we're going to help you," Clara said, her voice steady. "We're going to break the hold this darkness has over you and the others." The shadows surged forward, but Clara and her friends stood firm, their combined strength pushing back against the malevolent force. "Listen to our voices," Clara shouted, her heart pounding. "We are not afraid. We are here to help." The static crackled violently, and the entity shrieked in fury, its form twisting and writhing as it fought against their resolve. "You cannot escape," it roared, but Clara felt the warmth of Frank's spirit enveloping her, bolstering her courage. "Frank, we believe in you," she called out, her voice rising above the chaos. "You are not alone. We will fight for you. The shadows recoiled, and Clara felt a surge of energy coursing through her. The air crackled with electricity, and the oppressive weight of the darkness began to lift. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the radio console, illuminating the room and pushing back the shadows. Clara shielded her eyes, and when she looked again, she saw Frank standing before them, his form shimmering with ethereal light. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. "You have freed me." The entity howled in rage, its form dissipating into the light as it was banished from the station. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the shadows that had once haunted the radio station began to fade away. Clara felt a sense of relief wash over her, and she turned to her friends, tears of joy streaming down her face. "We did it," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We helped him." Frank smiled, his expression filled with peace. "You have not only saved me but also the others who were lost. The darkness can no longer hold us." With that, he began to fade, his spirit ascending into the light. As the last remnants of the shadows vanished, the radio console crackled one final time. "Thank you," Frank's voice echoed softly, filled with warmth and gratitude. "You have given us freedom." And then, silence enveloped the room. Clara, Jake, Mia, and Tom stood in the control room, their hearts racing as they processed what had just happened. The air felt lighter, and the oppressive weight that had once filled the station was gone. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. As they made their way out of the station, the forest around them felt different, less foreboding, more alive. The whispers of the trees seemed to carry a sense of peace, and Clara felt a warmth in her heart, knowing they had done something truly remarkable. Once outside, they paused to take in the night sky, the stars twinkling brightly above them. "We should tell the town what happened," Mia said, her voice filled with excitement. "They need to know the truth about WBLK." Clara nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "Yes, we have to share Frank's story." As they walked back through the forest, Clara felt a sense of closure wash over her. They had faced their fears, uncovered the truth, and helped those who had been trapped in darkness. The bond between them had grown stronger, forged in the fires of their shared experience. But as they reached the edge of the woods, Clara glanced back at the radio station one last time. A flicker of light danced in the window, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw Frank standing there, watching over them with a smile. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that they had not only freed him but had also brought light back to a place that had been shrouded in darkness for far too long. And as they stepped into the town, ready to share their story, Clara knew that the echoes of the past would forever be a part of them, a reminder of the power of courage, friendship, and the unbreakable bond between the living and the lost. The darkness had been vanquished, but the memories of their journey would remain, a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of the unknown.